Two crimes happened at once, caught on camera.
At the end of this street sits one of the most horrific true crime stories you'll ever hear about. The Ortega family was having a Christmas Eve dinner in Covina, California, when there was a knock at the door. There was a man there dressed in a Santa suit and armed with a gun and a flamethrower. By the next morning, 9 people would be proclaimed dead. What could cause a man to just snap like this?
Did you know that Granny is based on a true story? Tamara Samsonova, also known as Granny Ripper, held her son captive in her house. If he made any sound, she would brutally beat him with a bat, and on the 5th day, she killed him by hanging. Granny had 11 victims, including her husband and her grandson. She was seen carrying their body parts in shopping bags on camera from her apartment. Granny was also a cannibal. She would butcher her victims and eat their remains.
Have you ever wondered how accurate police sketches are? I'm going to show you a sketch, then the person, and we're going to see. And this is part of a series, so make sure you follow along. This is the Unabomber, probably the most famous police sketch ever drawn. And this is what was seen in 1987 by the only woman to ever see him in action. He'd go on to mail 16 bombs across the country over the course of 18 years. And this is a picture of a young Ted Kaczynski, the man that did it. The Unabomber was incredibly hard to catch because he lived in this shed and was a total recluse. It was actually his brother's wife that suggested that Ted was the Unabomber because she recognized his writing style in a letter that he had written to authorities. Thank God for observant women, and let me know if there's anyone else you want to see. What are some of the craziest things people have confessed to at the end of their lives? In this series, I'm sharing some of the craziest ones I found. And I cover all sorts of spooky and true crime stuff, so follow along. So in 2004, Geraldine Kelly was dying of cancer. Her daughter was there by her side, but this was particularly hard on her daughter, because her father, Geraldine's husband, had passed away in a motor vehicle accident years prior. Or at least that's what Geraldine had told everyone. A few days before Geraldine passed away, she tells her daughter that she lied about how her husband died. He didn't die in an accident. Geraldine had killed him. And not only that, but she was keeping his body in a freezer in a storage unit. So her daughter calls the police right away, and sure enough, he's in an unplugged freezer that was taped shut. Geraldine claimed that she had been a victim of abuse, but she passed away a few days later, along with any information she had on this case.
Sorry. You're an adult, correct? Juvenile and juvenile, correct? Am I right? Mm-hmm. You two are under 18 and you're 18. You're all going to be booked with first-degree premeditated murder. You two will go to the Juvenile Assessment Center. You will go to the Marion County Jail. Okay? Take a deep breath. You'll have no bond. You won't be getting out.
How many years?
Oh, honey, this is not... Listen to me. Everybody just take a deep breath.
Well, and we really didn't do anything.
No. See, but you did. First of all, let's get over that hump right now, okay? That we really didn't do anything because everybody's complicit here. A person died. A person was murdered, okay? We all knew about it. We all planned it. We were all involved in getting it done. So let's hop that hurdle first, okay? Let's man up to the fact that, damn it, this was a pretty heinous crime and we all had something to do with it. Now we got to deal with what will happen to us from that, okay?
Yeah, well, it was like the fact, I know I was scared because Mike had a gun and
you know what? Stop it. Do you think we haven't been listening to everything you guys have been saying in here? Are you that stupid, really?
I know.
And just stop. Because I don't even, lying to me just makes me just, ugh, I hate it.
I wouldn't lie.
Oh yeah, you were. You lied about a few things.
This is considered one of the most shocking cases in Polish history. On January 6, 1999, a sailor in Poland noticed something strange floating on the river. It was long and pale and it smelled very bad. And as he leaned in closer to get a better look, he saw an ear attached to it. Now, what I'm about to say next is very disturbing, so be warned. After the sailor found this substance, DNA testing then indicated it was the skin of a missing woman named Katarzyna Zawada. And whoever did this to her turned her skin into a suit and was likely wearing it. So at this point, only her skin was found. Until January 14th, when pieces of her clothing and one leg was found also in the river. 17 years later, 52-year-old Robert J. was arrested for this. He previously worked in a dissection lab, meaning he was skilled in preparing animal skin. And he allegedly also knew the victim. As of October 2022, 23 years since the victim was found, Robert J. is still awaiting trial. As he remains in custody, investigators are allegedly gathering more evidence to solve the case. Follow for more.
There is no way in 1,000 years you'd be able to guess what's happening in this photo. Yes, it does look like the apartment of a former frat boy who can't decorate, but it's actually a still from the most evil reality television show to ever exist, where this man was kept in this apartment naked with no food for 15 months, while 17 million people in Japan tuned in. It's also the subject of tonight's episode, so let's dive in. So this is called Sweepstakes Life, and it was a show in Japan in the 90s. To cast the show, a group of men were told to come to a casting office with no other information. A box with a question mark was then wheeled into the room, and each of the men had to pull an envelope. This guy, Nasubi, is the guy that gets the winning slip, and this is where his nightmare begins. He was immediately blindfolded and thrown in the back of a car, where he was brought to this apartment and told to strip. This is also where he's told that anything he needs to survive needs to be won in sweepstakes that are in those magazines, meaning he couldn't eat anything until he won it, which didn't happen for 2 weeks. He wouldn't be let out of the apartment until he won 1 million yen worth of prizes, and he had no idea it would take him over a year to do so. I'm gonna have to do another part to this story, but check out tonight's episode for more.
Everybody listen up, you need to get in your seats right now. Hey, you kids, sit forward, please. Facing forward, thank you. That's what I like. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Everybody hang on! Oh, is everybody okay? Kids! Kids!
So what the hell is that?
All hands, hoist the colors high.
Barbie has a much creepier history than I thought. I'm gonna show you some theories about Barbie that have been keeping me up at night, and I cover all sorts of creepy and true crime stuff, so follow along. In 2010, Barbie released a doll that had a camera on her necklace as well as a video screen on her back. This doll has since been discontinued, but there's a lot of rumors about what happened to this footage when it was recorded. So people have always theorized that the footage was collected and sold either by Mattel or by someone more nefarious. And it's been mentioned how easy it would have been for hackers to collect and sell all this data. The FBI even put out a statement about it. Barbie also released and discontinued the Hello doll, which could listen to children and respond with over 8,000 pre-recorded answers. A lot of parents worried that these dolls were potentially recording their children and then selling that data, but this doll also has really concerning reviews. Like, people say that the doll won't take no for an answer. Like, if she asked if you wanted to hear a story and then you said no, she would actually push back and then just tell you the story anyways. And the doll would also ask really specific and targeted questions about children, like how big their families were and if they had any siblings. Was this doll just collecting market data on children, or was it something much weirder?
This popular YouTuber and makeup blogger threw her 2 babies in the trash, killing both of them. This is Alyssa Dayvault, so this case is really disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised, but back in the day, she used to have a pretty big YouTube channel. She would constantly be posting these videos with artistic makeup, showing people how to do the makeup like her, giving beauty and fashion advice, and nobody really would have ever expected this from the woman who seemed to radiate positivity on her social media. So in 2018, Alyssa had to go to the hospital because of an infection. And after they gave her a blood transfusion, they discovered that there was an unborn placenta inside of Alyssa. But when Alyssa claimed that she had never been pregnant in the first place, the authorities were called and the story began to unravel. So when the doctors and the police officers showed Alyssa that they had proof that she had been pregnant, you can't deny science, that's when she admitted the terrible things she had done. She claimed that in 2017 she gave birth at home. But Alyssa claimed that when she gave birth at home to her baby girl, the umbilical cord was still wrapped around the child's neck. And according to Alyssa, afterwards she noticed the baby was dead and literally threw it in the trash. Since she suffered no complications from this pregnancy, she thought she got away with it, but then in 2018 she was pregnant again. Keep in mind, she had been hiding her pregnancies from her husband, her family this entire time. So when the authorities questioned her about what happened to her recent baby, Alyssa told them a similar story. She tried to claim that it was so painful when she was giving birth that she passed out, and when she came to, her baby was dead, and that she once again picked up the baby's body and threw it in the garbage. But the authorities didn't believe her because when they actually located the infant boy's body, they discovered that there was fecal matter next to it. Meaning that when Alyssa had placed her child inside of the trash, it had actually been alive and breathing. This meant that the closing of the trash bag had actually suffocated the child to death. Eventually, she was found guilty, sentenced to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole, but I can't believe it's only a 40-year sentence. I mean, she killed both children, definitely, and tried to hide it from her friends, family, from the world. But some secrets just can't stay hidden forever.
Just when I thought I heard about all the worst cults in history, this one had to come and blow them out of the water. This is Colonia Dignidad. They were a German torture cult hiding out in the Chilean wilderness after World War II, aka Yazis. And to show you how terrible they were, let me tell you a story. As a quick reminder, if you want more info, you can check out the podcast. The leader of this cult was a known child abuser, and he wanted more Chilean boys to be brought to him. So he started a hospital in the community and used it as a trafficking system to get more children. One day, a young Chilean boy choked and was rushed to the hospital. And right when he got there, a nurse scooped him up, brought him to a room, and saved his life. But later that day, his sister arrived and asked a nurse when she could pick him up to take him home. And the nurse responded that they needed to monitor him for a few more days, which is pretty suspect in a choking case. So a few days later, she comes back and she's like, okay, can I get my brother? And the nurse tells her that he's not there anymore. And this is because the hospital had lawyers on staff that were drafting up adoption paperwork when young boys would come in. The cult was able to legally adopt boys in the community without the parents' consent, and the parents had not enough money to do anything about it. There are so many more stories about this place, and I had never heard of it before, so make sure you check out this week's episode for more info.
This has to be one of the scariest videos I've ever seen. No ghosts, no spirits, real life. A young female real estate photographer was taking photos for her job one day. She happened to be in an occupied house. The resident began following her around. She says this wasn't unusual, so she didn't think anything of it until she started noticing multiple locks on certain doors and even a camera pointed toward one of these doors. When she goes upstairs, a man comes out of one of the rooms. What happens next is straight out of a horror film. You have to see the video for yourself.
Okay, so I took pictures of this house, and this guy was following me around like the whole time, which isn't unusual, but he was a little bit strange, and there was like 6 people living in this house, and it's a hoarder house. But I also noticed they have like 3 locks on the door, and then down here they have locks, and then going up here they have a camera and it's facing this door. Anyway, a roommate comes out of this door and he asks them if he should lock the door and kidnap me. And I said, immediately, people know where I am. And then he laughed and said, no one would ever hear from you again. Bro, I did not even finish this house. I immediately left. I was like, nope, dipped the out. You can see me right there. Hello. But yeah, pretty sure I maybe almost got kidnapped, but I don't really know.
If you're a woman and you've ever had any close calls like this, let me know in the comments below. We need to spread awareness that things like this really happen.
At just 8 years old, I weighed over 180 kilograms and became the most obese child in the world. At the end of this video, you will see my current photo. I am Jessica Leonard, born in Tennessee, United States. I was an only child, and I cried a lot from birth. My mother thought it was because I was hungry, so she fed me. Every time I cried, she would feed me. This led to devastating eating habits. I started showing signs of being overweight from my first year, and my addiction to food would only grow over time. My mother gave me potato chips for breakfast along with other unhealthy foods. By the age of 5, she used to order a family-sized pizza just for me. At that age, I was already drinking up to 5 liters of Coca-Cola daily. At the age of 7, I was consuming a diet of 10,000 calories a day and was addicted to junk food. I ate in a couple of days what other kids ate in months. My mother would buy me 15 Happy Meals from McDonald's, and I had unlimited access to sweets and chocolates. I once ate over 2 kilograms of chocolate in one day. By the time I was 8 years old, I weighed 180 kilograms, had trouble walking, and had difficulty moving in general. Walking was exhausting, so I preferred to sit all day. I remember one day I started having trouble breathing. I was taken to a children's hospital in Tennessee, and that's when Child Protective Services intervened. I was admitted to a clinic for people with obesity problems. I underwent an intense exercise and diet plan, which helped me lose over 100 kilograms. I had to undergo surgery to remove more than 10 kilograms of excess skin and also needed physical therapy to realign my bones. My mother felt a lot of guilt because she had made me addicted to food. So, she took parenting and nutrition courses to prevent this from happening to me again. This is how I look now. I have continued to struggle with food, and I have never been able to maintain a healthy diet for long. I am an example of how the habits our parents instill in us can haunt us for the rest of our lives. What do you think of my story?
This mother hid sticky notes in her daughter's sock to be saved from captivity. This 28-year-old mother and 2 kids, 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, Mason Dominguez, were held captive by a man named Brandon Tusland. This all started in January 2021 when the father of the 2 kids, Eli Dominguez, passed away from pneumonia. The mother was happily married to Eli, but since his death, she began to struggle financially. That's when Eli's former friend, Brandon, offered to support her and her 2 kids. In March 2021, the mother and 2 kids moved into Brandon's home, and that's when he became controlling and abusive. He alienated her from her family, made her quit her job, and confiscated her phone. He put locks on the bedroom doorknobs, installed motion sensors, and duct taped her to the bed. She was also handcuffed when she rode in the car with him. But one day, the mother spotted a sticky notepad and a pen in his car, and that's when she began a weeks-long plan to seek help. The mother found the perfect chance to put a sticky note in her daughter's sock, and on February 22nd at 8:40 a.m., the 7-year-old girl went to school and gave the sticky note to her teacher. The note said that her mother was being held against her will and she needed help right away. School officials notified authorities and Brandon was arrested right away. But it doesn't end there. This is when things get super disturbing. Brandon kept her kids away from her most of the time, and especially when she was locked up. And she actually had not seen her 4-year-old son, Mason Dominguez, since December 11th, and she suspected he was dead. When the mother lost full contact with her son, she knew she had to find a way out to save her and her daughter. When police searched his house, they found the remains of 4-year-old Mason Dominguez in his freezer in his garage.
This is a true horrifying story, part 76. This story took place in Dubai very recently. There's a group of young Emirati guys that contributed money to rent a villa in a community in Dubai. They pretty much wanted to co-rent a house so they can spend time together on the weekends. So they rented this villa. They were playing games, partying, doing wrong things, bringing girls over, stuff like that. On a normal weekend, one of these guys, named Ahmed, started talking to a local girl recently. After a couple of tries, he finally convinces her to come over. Before she arrived, he tells his friends not to come upstairs as he would be in one of the bedrooms with this girl. When she arrived, he immediately takes her upstairs and locks the bedroom door. In 30 minutes exactly, all the guys downstairs hear drastic screaming coming from upstairs. They see Ahmed running down the stairs, completely naked with no clothes on, scared for his life. They ask him, "What is going on?" He stutters in fear, saying, "Get out of this house, all of you." They thought he was playing some sort of prank until they see the girl run down the stairs, also with no clothes on. She was screaming with a man's voice, telling Ahmed to come back. It wasn't her normal voice. It sounded raspy and very manly. They all run outside, and one of Ahmed's friends takes his pants off and gives it to Ahmed so he can cover up. They start running and knocking on neighbors' doors in panic because calling the police will not help the situation. Maybe because there was something inside the house they didn't want the police to see. There was an Emirati neighbor nearby that allowed them to stay in his home until they figured out a solution. As they explained the story to this neighbor, Ahmed sneaks outside and sees this girl completely dressed up in her clothes, conscious and not knowing what is going on. He yells at her from a distance, saying, "Stay away from me. Don't come any closer. I want nothing to do with you." She cries in pain, not knowing what she did. She asks him, "Why are you standing far from me?" He told her to leave. She cries and begs him to drop her home because she didn't even know where she was. This was a ashiq jinn that possessed this girl, and this jinn did not allow another man to do the dirty with her. If someone wanted to be a hero while these things were happening, something very bad could have happened and lives could have been taken.